Welcome to From the Be All Ends, the Burnley podcast. Hope we're sitting comfortably, boys and girls. I've got three petulant children alongside me today. Simon Evans and Chris Borden, who you all know. We know how bad they are in public at their temper tantrums. And somebody else who's come in just to throw his toys out the pram as well. Somebody who's been on the show before, Ed Abis. Yes, 24 hours. 24 hours after Burnley 0, West Ham 2. All the talk is not of what happened on the pitch, but what happened before the game on a little-known BBC show called Football Focus. Let's have a listen to what our erstwhile chairman, Alan Pace, said in an interview with the BBC.
144 years. It's not going anywhere, okay? It's going to have good days, bad days, tough days, great days. We've seen that over the last 5 years that we've been involved. And people coming up and congratulating us on the street for making up for the 90s in Blackburn. I mean, there's just crazy stuff that happens. I don't get credit for it, but I certainly get all the blame for it, and that's absolutely okay. There will be great days ahead, I have no doubt. You have kids?
Yes.
Okay. You ever have a 3-year-old throw a temper tantrum in the middle of a public, event? Okay, well, at the end of it, you get embarrassed and you say, I'm sorry, but it doesn't stop you from being a good parent. And you hope that they grow up, and that when they do grow up, they're going to be contributors to society in the way that I'm sure your kids have and my kids have. And the reality is, we're going to keep going, and we're going to try to be the best parents that we can possibly be for this family.
Chris Borden, what do you want to be when you grow up? And how are you going to contribute to society?
I'm going to be an astronaut.
Oh, what a dream. What a dream, mate.
It's no matter which way you want to read it, and some people have read it as, the toddlers, the temper tantrum being the supporters, other people have read it as the club. Doesn't matter which way you read it. I mean, whether he even clarifies his own comments, the fact that it is so ambiguous, it's just a bizarre thing to say, and all this. I mean, what happened we didn't play Blackburn in the 90s.
No, but they've made up for it, though, haven't they? They've made up for the non-existent what happened in the 90s with Burnley. People come and congratulate him, but he doesn't get credit for it.
We were in the 4th division, and they were winning, going on the way to winning the Premier League, sort of thing. It's good grief. I mean, what? So. What who are we thanking? Are we thanking Barry Kilby? Are we thanking Mike Garlick, John B, Sean Dykes? It's none of these are anything to do with ALK. Because they're the ones that we can go back to Owen Coyle as well. These people have been the ones who are instrumental in getting Burnley in the Premier League or getting them out of the lower echelon. Stan Turner is one of the prime figures in moving the tanker around. It's just all, it's insulting, I feel. It's just all, I mean, we barely hear from Alan Pace from 1 month to the next. You might get some notes in the programme that are probably either written by AI or written by, one of the media assistants or something like that. But it's, I don't know, the whole thing, at the time that we're having now, we're supposed to just sit on our hands and just not voice our disapproval of it. Such a clusterfuck that's unwinding in front of us. I'm sorry. There's a lot of angry people out there at the moment, and they're rightly so. And we're just being, treated like muppets at the moment. And I can't get past him sounding like Mr. Mackey from South Park either.
Simon,
I'm kind of.
Are you a muppet? Are you feeling like a muppet at the?
Are you a muppet or a man? As the song goes.
Stepdaddy Pace calling you out for throwing your toys out the pram because we're not winning football matches and we're daring to question things.
It's a weird one, isn't it? I can't possibly see any other reading of it, to be honest, that he's talking about the fans being 3-year-olds, because the club's not coming up to him on the street congratulating him for whatever they supposedly did about the 1990s in Blackburn. Look, I mean, he's going to discover a side of Burnley fans he probably didn't know. I mean, that's probably the only learning he's going to get from it, is that the people have long memories, and if he wants to check out what that's like, he could call the Bond family up, perhaps, or he could call Owen Coyle up and ask them, I mean, we've been asking Owen Coyle to come on this podcast for a long time, and he's quite friendly personally with a few of us on this podcast, and he won't come on because he knows what Burnley fans are like. And I hope we persuade him another way eventually. But, you know, Pace has put himself into that position of becoming one of those kind of figures by this absolute cluster of an interview. I mean, it's a total car crash. Let's leave aside for a minute, you know, any debate about who he was talking about. And like I say, I think he's clearly talking about the fans. What is he doing? Doing a Football Focus interview before the game? I mean, when you're going to that situation, if you're his PR guy, and there's plenty of us on this podcast and connected with it have been in PR guys in football clubs and close to these kind of decisions, the first question you're asking as a PR guy is, what's your goal? What are you trying to achieve? What do we want out of this interview? Now, whatever he wanted out of that interview, he hasn't got. I mean, he presumably didn't want to insult the fans and talk gobbledygook about stuff to do with Blackburn in the 90s that no one really understands. So no one's asked him that question, clearly. And then the second part of it, following on from it, would be, right, what are your key messages here? You know, most of the advice that PR people would give is like 2, maximum 3 messages you want to get across in this interview and really hammer those points. There's no message. There's no message there. He starts off the interview on a bit before that clip, talking about the transfer market, which is clearly what got him wound up, I think. And you know, he's come out with the line that it's difficult in the January window. Okay, fine. Everyone knows that. We've repeated it as much as anyone on this podcast. It's true. And then he goes in, we've spent 300 million. We spent 300 million on this team. And I'm thinking, watching it last night, and I'm thinking, I've just seen the team on the field that is possibly the worst Burnley team we've seen in the Premier League. I mean, Company's one is a close, but 300 million, this is the end result of 300 million investment. I mean, that's what I'd be walking away if I was him and thinking about as well. So I don't know what his message was. He's managed to insult the fans. I think he does need to come out and clarify. I think he needs to apologise, to be honest. I think he needs to say, look, you know, my comments were like, I didn't mean to offend anybody, but, you know, what I was wanting to say was we all need to stick behind the team and have faith in each other and build something for the future. And there'll be glory days and there'll be good days and all that. That's what he needs to do now, is come out and apologise for it, clarify if he wants. But what a mess. And, you know, we never hear from him. And then when we finally hear from him, it's something like this. You know, it makes no sense whatsoever what he's done.
And Ed, I guess it's a mixture, you know, the best case scenario is it's a mixture of arrogance and incompetence. Worst case scenario, which we all believe to be the case, is, you know, he's come to the end of his tether and he's hitting out because we know he doesn't like scrutiny. Simon mentioned messaging there. Surely the clear message should have been, we're in a sticky situation, we need to stick together, almost repeating what Scott Parker said in his press conference of, let's be different. You know, let's not go down the route of slagging players off. Let's be different. You know, we're trying to build a community. This interview, to me, and you may agree, kind of typifies that he does not understand the local community. I mean, you know, you've been around the football club. A lot of the messaging that came out of the club when you were there was the start of that. Let's get this one club, one community. He's unraveling every single part of it, isn't he? With you know, absolute word soup like that.
Yeah, I worked with Stan Turner and with Steve Cottrell, and they certainly didn't listen to everything I asked them to do. But I you know, I saw it as my role on a day-to-day basis, obviously working with you, Chris, and Darren back in the day, and was to try and get them to understand how the fans felt in any given moment, right? So they've always got the temperature. Now, how they use that is entirely up to them. But ultimately, that is your role, so they understand what's going on outside of their own four walls. Because you do end up sort of shutting the door and, you know, putting down the barricades and go, you know, almost like burying your head in the sand because it's easy to do. But as soon as I saw that interview, I had the exact same feeling as you three, that, you know, he's having a go at the fans there because we're not just going along with it and being happy with what's being served up to us. And you know, that 300 million point that you made, Simon, there, that I'd not heard that. Yeah, but that's not net, though, is it? But we don't get to see what the incomings and outgoings are, right? Because we don't get told any of that information. Because if that's 300 million quid on the pitch, I want my money back. Like, there's no way on earth that's 300 million on that pitch there. And we know that they've been wheeling and dealing in the markets. We don't know how well they've been doing in the markets. And there's all sorts of rumours about how much of that money's then been loaded on the club as debt as well. So throwing them figures out, I don't think are helpful at all. Because the reality is like, the area that we're from, right, we see through it. Like, all we expect is respect and hard work. We've actually got a very short list of things that we want as Burnley fans. We do not expect to be the best on the pitch, but we expect to have a go. And being almost patronised at times, like you said there, Simon, is like, don't start winding up Burnley fans, because, I mean, I said that to my wife yesterday. I went, they haven't seen what angry looks like, because I think they've had a real easy ride over the last 5 years, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Like, no one's really questioned it. And I've been saying to mates going, why are you not questioning that? Right from when the thing happened 5 years ago, the way it was leveraged. I'm like, why? Like, no one seemed to question any of it and haven't done ever since. And you obviously you see him walking around and I'm like, why is no one ever asking any questions? I don't get it myself.
And Chris, I mean, we used to get criticised on this podcast for being anti-pace because you didn't get an interview, right? That was the thing that was always levelled at us, right? We're anti-pace.
Sounds about right, that. Sounds about right, Simon.
Because he wouldn't...
It's only because Chris Farnell bought me lunch once, and I'm a mercenary, you see.
He wouldn't speak to you, and we know he prefers to speak to people on the travelator in Tesco rather than the press, apart from when it's the BBC and he gets his mug on TV. But Ed's right. We don't have a long list of demands, do we? We're not looking, we're not deluded. We're not, we've not got big club syndrome. We know what we are. We know where we've been. We know where we've come from. There's several things over the pace reign that I think we've picked out. That all now seems to be coming home to roost, doesn't it? The Burnley fans would be proud if I could tell them how we've bought the club.
Yeah.
We'll do everything in our power in the January window to keep this team in the Premier League. The same was said at Espanyol. My Spanish isn't very good, so I can't repeat it, but basically, we'll do everything in our power to secure European football for Espanyol. Both clubs have found out that the cupboard is pretty bare with Alan Pace. Now this, are you starting to feel, I certainly yesterday felt around me in the ground and chatting to people, that people are now starting to go, hang on a minute, this guy's not all he's cracked up to be?
Well, I'd say I've not been comfortable from day one, and it's nothing to do with interviews and this, that, and the other. Although, I've said before, the local press were promised the earth, and nothing ever emerged on that front. The first major interview that the group gave was.
So you are a bit miffed about that, Chris, aren't you?
I'm just like, but let me lay the
Daddy's not delivered.
No. But if I lay the context out, you promised the earth for sort of 3-4 months. You're going to get this, you're going to get that, you're going to get the other. The first major interview goes to Mail Online, which fair enough was, in terms of eyes on the site, you couldn't argue. They want to get the message over, and you understood that. And then we end up in one interview that's almost the world that his wife was invited to on Zoom, where I think the locals were about an hour plus down the line. So how much of it's already been asked, etc. But I look back at them initial quotes, and we're puzzled about them for months. I want the fans to be comfortable in how sustainable this takeover is, and I want what you said there about to feel pride in the manner that we've done it. But I can't tell you how we've done it, and we're none the wiser. Sort of 5+ years down the line.
I've heard you guys mention this quite a few times before. Look, right, the thing is at the moment, right, the reality is it's dispiriting, right? The football club for us is a source of community pride. We are, we pride ourselves on being different. Now, every football fan will say that about their football team, but they're wrong because we are different. But it's escapism for us, right? And I think. And not to harp, I'm going to do the dash. Do you do some sound when dash gets mentioned? Sorry, I've jumped in there and done it, haven't I?
We clock it up. Chris had mentioned him earlier, so it wasn't the first mention.
No. There we go.
He came in and he got the club, and he made it his business to understand what we're about, and we could forgive him for so much because of that, right? And there was not everything's perfect. That's the reality, but. The point I was getting to is when you've talked about the way we are yo-yoing back and forth at the moment, because that team needs rebuilding every year, you're absolutely right. It's really hard to fall in love with that team because there's no one we can hang our hats on. Because it just feels like every year that team's going to get rebuilt again and we have to start all over again. So you don't get an attachment to anything. And that's part of that pride, is that attachment to certain people, like your talks in the past, who stuck around because they felt like they was part of something different. Like they could have probably gone elsewhere and taken more money at any given moment, but they didn't until they really, really had to. People tended to stick around and have their time because they knew that they'd have an experience that not all the money in the world will pay for.
I was going on about how great the longevity's been, that group in the Premier League, and albeit Pope, he's got a medal now and he's played in the Champions League, etc. But the rest of them had the days of their lives with us.
Yes.
You know, Tarky's not finished.
Tarky's not had it any better, has he?
No, he's not finished higher than he has with us in 4 years, Everton.
Simon, I mean, the 300 million that obviously Pace mentions, it's almost like that should be seen as a source of pride. But to you, does it not feel like almost an admission of that we've not got this right at any point? You know, I understand going between divisions means you lose players and players don't want to play in the Championship and things like that. But ultimately, if you've spent 300 million over however many, 11 transfer windows, whatever it works out at, that means there's not been a good enough strategy to build a team that is successful enough to take you from the Championship to the Premiership and keep you there, right? So when you come back down, you have to rebuild, and we've rebuilt when we've gone up, etc., etc. Do you see that as the fact we've had to spend 300 million quid as a failure, or is it this sense of pride that Pace is trying to, basically say, look, you've had your pocket money, you should be proud of it?
Yeah, he's biting, isn't he? He's picking up online people saying Pace should have got his hand in his checkbook in January. He's done note, and he's hearing the same, in Spanish as well from Espanol, and he's biting about that, and he's going, look, I've spent 300 million, right? Not of his money, he hasn't, by the way, but the club may have spent 300 million in the last 5 years on transfers. I mean, they spent close to half of that with company, didn't they? So, there's a fair chance that number's about right. You would think after a 5-year process that's involved 300 million being spent on players that the team would be better than it was when they took over. And it isn't. It isn't better, I mean, somebody put some highlights up.
It's not just about what you spend, though, is it? It's what goes out too.
Yeah.
It frustrates me whenever I see any managers talking about and you see some of the managers obviously rail against it when they're told they spent 500 million. They go, yeah, but I've sold 400 million of it. So actually the net, it's about the net, really. It's not the outlay, because ultimately the reality is the way they're running this football club is the only way they're ever going to make any money is if they're buying and selling. Now, look, that was our history back in that. Bob Lord used to do that. It's not like that's new to us. That's happened before.
It's not buying.
It's not a new thing.
They were selling.
Selling, there you go. But they managed to regenerate, and I think that's what Dyche managed to do over a period of time with very little. Was regenerate all the time.
What saleable assets have we? What saleable assets have we got now? 2 years.
No,
ago,
not many have we. But if you, I mean, the point I was going to make about transfers is, it's been bad this year, hasn't it? Again, and it was bad with company, and they haven't recruited well, and this reflects something. I mean, this is a communications mess up that we're talking about with Pace yesterday, but it reflects other things that aren't run well in the club, I think. And the biggest problem is the football side of the operations. Let's forget about all the business stuff and the LED lights and the partnership agreements that we never hear anything about after they've been signed and all that. Just in terms of the football side of it, it's a mess. Players coming and going, bad signings. The strategy seems to have been, changed regularly. By all accounts, the recruitment team is the same people who were working for Vincent Kompany, but they're still at the club. It's a mess. And what Pace needs to do after he's apologised or clarified his statements, he needs to sit down this summer and he needs to eat a little bit of humble pie at last and say that maybe a guy who's got very little experience in football might want to hire some people who have. And they could start off with a director of football who would come into the club and assess what needs to be done. Somebody who's got experience, who knows English football, not somebody who's got a degree in geometry from Harvard, but somebody who understands English football. Come in, sort out the recruitment department and turn it into a scouting and recruitment department, not just a data department, and have proper scouting going on so that we don't make messy signings. We don't end up with more players costing 20 million on loan at other clubs or sat in the reserves. And then get that sorted, and then that person, I would presume, would make the decision about the coaching staff as well and start building something and have football people who know the business. The best American investors who've come into English football have done exactly that. You look at somewhere like Ipswich Town, where they came in, they were Americans, they said, we don't know how to run a League One football club. They hired somebody from Bristol City to be the CEO, who then went and hired Kieran McKenna to be the coach, and away you go, and they won 2 straight promotions because they had American money behind them. If you could combine the fact that they have access to the credit lines, let's put it that way, and combine that with some football expertise, you might have something workable. But it's just a mess because they think they know best all the time, and they don't. If they were such geniuses at building football clubs, they'd be doing it in their own country, and they're not. They haven't got the patience to build an MLS club for 25 years like other people do.
Yeah. And Chris, I mean, just touching on that, I mean, we've talked a few times about the need for a director of football. There's probably lots and lots of candidates. There's a guy who, worked under a certain Sir Alex Ferguson for a number of years, who's a local lad who, would have both the contacts, the knowledge of our top level football club could work. We're talking, of course, about Mick Phelan. There seems to be this kind of arrogance, and I'm going to sound like a right prick now, but it really annoys me that they've dismantled not just the football side of things, but they've dismantled the ticketing operation, the media operation, and there's kids who are obviously golf club buddies of AOK and Pace, brought in temporarily. This guy's doing this job, this guy's doing this job. We have such a churn of staff. Chief of staffs come and go, head of marketing comes and go, etc., etc. They can't get any of it right, let alone the football side. The football side is the most easily fixed part of it, because all you need to do is pick the phone up to someone like Mick Phelan, spend a pretty penny going, we need somebody to come in who knows the English game, knows the European game, has contacts at the highest level. But as Simon said, they always think they know best, don't they? There's a weird arrogance, isn't there?
Yeah, might as well have Hale and Pace at minute, aren't we? But it's
You don't know where to go with that, Chris. Yeah, you lost for words.
But no, I mean, it's a football club. To be fair, I mean, I think the director of football thing's a very, very, prudent point. But we're a club that's flip-flopped the last 25 years or so. You go from Waddle to Stan Ternent. You couldn't get a bigger switch, could you? And then you go to someone, someone similar to Steve Cottrell, and then you go to a complete opposite in Kyle, a complete opposite in Laws, a complete opposite in Eddie, complete opposite in Sean, a complete opposite in Vincent, and a complete opposite in Scott Parker. So you want someone above and beyond. I mean, Brighton. I believe their fans are a bit upset today because they're dropping like a stone. They've lost to Palace. They're turning on a very young manager. But at least you know full well within that football club in the last 10, 15 years, and it's been meticulously built by Tony Bloom and co there. And they've had the data, the scouting system in place. They've got a brand of football in place. They've rarely deviated from this. We want to play attractive possession football, and that's been the modus operandi for that period. But I see we go from this pragmatism to all out flair football back to pragmatism and it's knee jerk. And then you end up with a group of players that you have to shift a load of them on because they don't suit the system that the new manager wants to play. And then you think, when you want to get shit of him, we could have done with having those players that we've just let go of 12 months ago back again. But I mean, you think of the money that's been wasted. I mean, like, the lad. I mean, he came in on a free transfer, Sharandi Sambo. I mean, who on earth has done the scouting on him? And we've given him he's played in a central midfield role at Wolves in the League Cup in a team that was thrown together because we had to field a team because we'd sold all the players from underneath Scott in last August, etc. Sonji, who just didn't look anywhere near good enough. and he might have scored 4 or 5 goals in the Bundesliga, but he's going to come back and he won't get a kick at Burnley again, unless we are absolutely on our uppers, and he has to. There's been an absolute so many players out on loan and this that. Son, Cal Walker's been taken to the cleaners by Somerville yesterday, and to some extent, I can see why Scott Parker went. Even at 2-0 down at home when you need to win, going to a back 5 is one of the last things you want to do. But he knew that Kyle Walker was getting absolutely taken to the cleaners by Somerville. So he had to do something in that respect. But they've let Son go out on loan. The whole thing's puzzling.
Well, I was just about to say that. Could he have contended with the pace of that?
I mean, I'd have had Son in. I said this on the podcast a few weeks ago. I'd have had Son in ahead of Walker.
Oh, I mean, Ekdal was on loan at Groningen.
I mean, the story about Son is, I mean, it's a very bizarre place for him to go on loan to, isn't it? Sparta Prague. And the story I've seen, it's on forums, it's not well sourced or anything, but there's plenty of people saying it does kind of make sense, is that the Sparta Prague owner is a minority owner at West Ham. And the suggestion there was that part of the James Ward-Prowse loan deal was that Burnley provide Sparta Prague with something in return. Now, I say that's a rumour that's out there. If that's true, that is absolutely mad, isn't it? I mean, we're doing favours in deals, and how does Son feel now? He's a Peruvian international playing in the Czech league in front of 4,000 people.
Yeah. But look at Ward-Prowse.
How does he feel?
Now. We've signed Ward-Prowse, who wasn't judged fit enough in terms of match fitness to play at Sunderland, who is then can't play against his parent club. And it is now utterly pointless to play him whatsoever because there's no option to sign him in the summer. We ain't staying up. Well, what's point? You might as well play one of the bloody youth players and play Ward-Prowse. He's not keeping us up. So why is he here? Good footballer, very good footballer. But it's now
that felt like a pointless transfer. That
yeah. But I mean that just beggars belief.
Just to bring it back to what we were saying in terms of flip-flopping, I think you're absolutely right in terms of that flip-flop. I mean, Ed, I always think back to the guy at Southampton, Les Reed. He was Charlton manager, and then he was like director of football operation, vice chairman. I remember my mate always talks about an interview with him where they went through managers. Obviously, they had Pochettino, etc., and Koeman, and they had all these managers. And they said, like, how do you keep doing it? He said, well, we have a succession plan. We've got a folder in a drawer that says, if that player leaves, these are the players that we target because they fit the system we play. If that manager leaves, as they often do, that's that. And that's, somebody who was not a great manager. I'm just looking at his managerial stats. 12% win record, very short tenure at Charlton. 8 games, only 1 win. Not a brilliant manager, never played football really at high level, but, had that knowledge of the game, could steer Southampton, when they were going from, being a proven Premier League club to one of these clubs that, was struggling and was going down and into league. There needs to be a succession plan, doesn't there? And do you get the impression that if Scott Parker is to leave in the summer, which probably nigh on will do, that we have a succession plan, i.e. the players that are in the building will play under a system of the manager? Or is it just a beauty contest again?
Well, look, Les Reed, I think he's regarded as one of the finest football strategists in the game, right? But like you said, never made it as a manager or a coach necessarily, but I've known people who've known him too, and they've talked about ultimately how everyone knows who he is and he knows everyone in the game, and ultimately people trust him to set the agenda in a football club and set that footballing vision that takes that football club forward, regardless of what happens on the pitch, right? He's always got a plan B, a C, and a D. I don't think there is that sort of vision at the club. It just doesn't look like there is. And I was going to say this earlier as well. Like obviously you've got a board of directors, and we've seen plenty of different series that's been made over the last 5 years about what goes on behind the scenes. I feel like the directors interfere far too much in the day-to-day running of the football club. Their job as a board of directors is to set a vision for the club and then hire executives to run that football club. Exactly. And we've got a chief executive who's now coming to the club who I've worked with briefly in the past, who's very, very capable, spent a good long time at Man United, knows the game from a commercial perspective day to day. I'm not sure what his experience is. It's a long time since I worked with him in terms of, managing the actual sort of football side of the business. And I know he's brought some people in that he's worked with before. He's very, very capable if left to do his job. The question is will he be left to do his job? Or, what is the difference between the chairman and the chief exec in the football club? Who's setting the vision? Who's executing the vision? Is it a mixture or is it not very clear? And if that happens across the board, that's why you get what you get when there's a huge turnover in staff across the board, because people are like, I'm getting far too much interference in what I'm doing here. I can't actually do my job. And I've not got any inside information on any of that. That's just me having worked at a multitude of different sporting organisations, just seeing what's good and what doesn't work.
I don't think I'm speaking out of turn, but that's certainly what I've been told, yeah, for a number of cases.
In the documentaries, it's actually, I think, one of the ALK people sort of makes that point to Pace, don't they? That he's too much of a micromanager. I mean, if you look at the American clubs again, I mean, I gave Ipswich as an example earlier, but look at the big ones that have been successful, right? John Henry at Liverpool. He appointed somebody to work on their transfers. They've had a couple of people in that role, haven't they? And he appointed them to work with Klopp on recruitment and that side of things. He did that. You never hear of John Henry getting involved and saying Szoboszlai should be playing in midfield. Or, same with Kroenke for all his faults as an Arsenal owner. You never hear of Kroenke getting involved in. Arteta has a director of football that he deals with. We'll leave United out of it. But, at Man City, Guardiola doesn't have to deal with the guy from Dubai coming into his locker room after games, which Pace used to do and apparently did annoy people at one time, the amount of times he would go into the dressing room after games as well. It needs that structure. Ed's exactly right. If we've got a good CEO there, let him be a good CEO. Do the same on the football side of the business. And you guys deal with the money. Deal with the money, because they're not football people in terms of running their organisation. They're not even organisation people, most of them.
What I would say about James, the CEO, as well, because look, none of us love the CEOs who want to be in the media all the time, right? I think we've always said that. James is not that kind of person. He wants to get on with doing his job. He works damn hard. He knows his stuff. You won't hear a lot from James, I don't think, as a chief exec, because that's just not his style. He's not a self-publicist. Again, from my experience, it was a long time ago since I've worked with him, and that's entirely what you want. But when the moment arises, you want him to come out, make a comment, move away. Don't try and turn it into some kind of PR machine. Just be honest and open with us and tell us what's going on. And I think if you're coming back to the transfer window, if we'd have said, look, we don't expect anyone to come out and go, oh, we're going to spend this much money in the transfer window and we're going to go and sign this player, and these are the positions that we need help in. We just want to hear, look, we're going to do everything we can. It's incredibly tough. I know I'm telling you the obvious, but I'm just telling you we're doing everything we can. Might not work out how we want, but we will try. And then at the end of it, just go, look, we did everything we could and it just didn't work out. Sorry. That's all it takes. We'll still grumble, but we'll be grumbling just because we grumble, right? Not because we think anything other than that. And that, like I said, we've been having a crap season and the comms have just gone, because when we were doing well, we couldn't wait to talk ourselves up about all the amazing things we're doing. And that's just gone. And I think people see through that. It's kind of it's when the times are tough that you've got to put your head out there and speak up, because people have so much more respect if you do.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, just touching on James as well, I mean, when it was announced that he was appointed, the mood music I got from people is, bloody hell, Burnley are lucky to get this guy. He did really well at Man United. I did brilliantly at Adidas. Wow. And I think we said, look, this may be the turning point for ALK, bringing in people who know European branding and football, etc., etc. But yeah, I agree completely on the transfer window. Just touching on the game, I mean, things did turn a little bit toxic at times during that game. I mean, the weather doesn't help, and the style of football we were watching. I mean, we've got a clip here which James McDonough, who some viewers and listeners will know, did our Jimmy Mullen episode in the summer. He sits in the cricket field stand, and he sent me a couple of videos, and this is a video from the end of the game, as the players are coming towards the tunnel. So we'll just cue that up for you. Just give this a listen as well. Now we can see there the stands are very empty. The stands were empty quite early on. A good 10 minutes before the game. I think Daz managed to last night said that he took the option of either staying and avoiding traffic or leaving early and getting stuck in traffic, which was a nice line from Daz. But there were other instances as well, Simon. I mean, I don't know how clearly they came through on the US TV coverage, but Jacob Brun-Larsen appeared to try and quieten the cricket field down. Got hurled abuse at, which I don't agree with. He's kind of sticking up for the set piece coach, but it becomes, if we thought it was untenable after Brighton and we had the weird mini revival where everyone kind of thought, oh my God, we've turned a corner because we've drawn 3 games that we could have lost 4-1. It's now untenable, isn't it? I mean, that atmosphere just gets more and more toxic, does it not? The longer Scott Parker stays in post.
Well, it's a horrible situation now, isn't it? Because we're effectively down, but we've got 13 games left of the season, and there's not going to be a lot at stake in these games. The numbers are going to dwindle. Some people are not going to go. There's going to be a lot more empty seats. The atmosphere could start to get even more toxic. I don't like the picking on Brun-Larsen. I mean, I think he's obviously bit a little bit and push back at the fans or ask them to be more positive or whatever, and then they turn on him. That's a bit unfortunate. He's probably better just keeping out of it. I mean, it's very modern football, though, isn't it? Having a chant about the set piece coach. I mean,
we
didn't have
remarkable knowledge, really.
Wait till the throwing coach gets some stick. But you're not to wear the shirt was. I mean, I thought that was a bit too far.
Yeah.
I mean, Brun-Larsen,
I don't agree with that.
He's just trying to sort of like, come on, we need you, sort of thing. And I mean, yeah, you're not fit to wear the shirts.
But you become a target, don't you?
Yeah.
You can very easily become a target, and it's unfortunate because don't really want to see that, really, ever, do you? Really, individual players being picked on like that. I'd have no problem if they were singing "You're not fit to wear the shirt" at the field, at the players in general. But when it's one player in particular, it feels a bit nasty there. And I do feel bad. We want Parker out. I feel bad seeing that as well. I mean, I understand where it's coming from, and I just wonder. I think Daz had a good point on yesterday's where he just said, it's a bit like that Brian Laws situation, in the sense that like there's enough people really, really want Parker out. That even if we do all right for a bit, or going into next season if he's still there, if you start off next year and the first game of the season is at home and it's a slow start and we make a disappointing 0-0 draw, you're going to have Boos and Parker's out straight away.
Oh yeah, six games. If we keep him, 6 games, he's gone, right? Because it's going to stop Orley because he's going to have to build another team. No one's going to have any patience, and 6 games in, they're going to make the call. So the point of that is he's like, make the call now, because you've lost the crowd. Like, there's enough people now who just will not come back the other way and start to back him, I don't think. So you may as well make that change. But I'm convinced of it, and Simon, we've chatted about it, haven't we? Like, I'm convinced that the fact that they didn't make that change back at early December when they could have done, pre-window, even if they didn't think they were going to get anyone, someone would have had a bit more chance. The fact they've waited this long now suggests to me that they think he's the best man to bring us back up again. But if he's the best man to bring us back up again, that's not any football I want to watch.
Well, you think though, Ed, if we you're looking at that fixture list now, and the winnable game, and I'm going to say the only winnable game is Wolves at home. But Wolves are sort of improving.
Yeah.
Now, say we go into the summer, and they may well give their absolute everything and come up short in these games. But if we only beat Wolves, that'd be like 1 win, say, in 29. You can't then reward the manager. I've said it before, as you say, Daz alluded to last night. The Laws thing, where we were battering teams at home, and then you go to Coventry and get done 1-0, and then you go to Barnsley and get they actually won at Barnsley, which first time in like 80 odd years or something like that. But the crowd just weren't having him. And then like you lose at home to Scunthorpe on in and around Christmas, and it was game over, 2 points outside the playoffs. So you remember that second half of that season? It was all about Eddie trying to get that team by hook or by crook into the playoffs, and they always they fell well short ultimately. But it wasted that half season, really. It wasted a full season because Eddie could have been in place 6 months beforehand, maybe, and who knows what might have happened. But you can't. There's that
But
much
we can't
negativity
afford
now.
the difference now. The difference now is, Chris, that all right, we wasted a season there, but now we look at these seasons outside the Premier League in terms of the finances of the club and everything. We really can't afford to be wasting too many of them, can we? I mean, we might get away with one, but so I think they've got to decide if they're either sticking or switching with Parker. They've got to make those decisions we've talked about earlier about sorting the football side of the club out. Then whether it's Parker or the new manager, and I think it probably would be sensible for it to be a new manager. A new manager comes in, he's coming into a structure then with a director of football, with a recruitment team in place, and we're not just skipping along with another situation like we've been in.
I don't think it's arrogance to say if you go back 2 years ago, and in the Championship, that Burnley job would have been one of the most desired at that level. That you can probably blow your opponents out the water financially. You've got players there who knew how to get into the Premier League and had played Premier League football. But I think now you've almost got managers will come in and thinking, well, even if I win the bloody Championship with them, what's the point? Because I'm not going to get enough. And I'll say that there has been 100 million plus spent in the summer windows in both the last two ALK Premier League seasons, but it's not enough. And it's not going to be enough, and it's probably going to keep going north. So, you've seen that. Sunderland have spent. I keep saying, hats off to Sunderland. They've done magnificently, and the recruitment's been sensational.
And Leeds,
but they've spent more than Burnley. Leeds maybe less.
They spent it better though. That's the point. They haven't spent that much more, Chris.
Well, Sunderland have spent. Once you take the players that we had obligations on out the equation, we've spent an awful lot on new players. So they had Lefay to pay for. But Leeds have probably spent similar, but they've actually targeted it on. Like I say, we're going land of the giants, and we're going to sign. We're taking a risk, but we're going to sign a proper bloody centre forward, which we haven't. No.
Yeah. Is there a thought process that, and this is somebody mentioned this to me in a bar yesterday. Last summer we should have been ruthless with Parker and cut Parker loose. Ed, is there? I mean, you obviously don't win many plaudits, and the optics of that is, Jesus Christ, this guy's just got 100+ points. Missed out on goal difference. But is there? Does a more ruthless, structured football club kind of go? Either he has 6 games to see where we're at, and we met the decision early, or we kind of go, thanks a lot, Scott, but we don't think it's going to work out with you in the Premier League.
I'm not a lover of how he sets up his teams, right? And I remember when he was at former clubs as well and watching his teams as well. I was never a fan of how he plays, but he had a really, really tough start to his tenure out where he had to rebuild the team. The football wasn't great until probably the last 10, 12 games of the season. It wasn't great to watch, right? But once he got us up, he earned the right to have a crack at the Premier League. I don't think there's any place where you can say, right, you're done, so we're going to replace you. He'd earned that right. But that has to come with a caveat of time. And that was my thought. Like, if you're getting to mid-year, having yo-yoed before, so you're getting to that December time, and we were where we were, and the fact of the matter is we were already in a mess. That's the time to make a change if you're going to make a change. At this point, like you say, it's pointless. You may as well see the season out. But the problem with that is where we are, momentum, where we are, and this is what makes me think that they might do something about it at the board, is because if it gets any more toxic as this, Parker will almost be incidental in terms of like our ire. Everyone will just turn it then on the board. It won't be about Parker anymore because everyone will just give up on that and move on to something else, and they will just turn it on the board. Now, And I'm not suggesting, like, we don't want to see this, right? Because, like I said, it's dispiriting, it's depressing. Like, we want to go and watch our team and just want them to have a crack. If we're going to go down, right? But let's, for the last 13 games, set ourselves up properly and have a right good go at it and go, like, let's go and get this many points. So at least we've got, like I say, some momentum. But you just can't see it because we've had plenty of opportunities, even over the last 7-8 games. Like, Newcastle, we could have got something out of that. Everton, we could have beat them. There's countless games where we could have got points. And I know there's been lots of discussions over, like, is there enough quality in the team? I've seen enough pockets during the course of the season, and we were chatting, didn't we, a little bit off air, then we were talking about Perez in that half an hour before he got sent off against Newcastle. All of a sudden, we could take set pieces. Where's that been for the rest of the season? Why have we not bothered doing that? And I know that, Newcastle had Ramsdale and go, and they thought, let's have a go. Other teams have dodgy keepers too. Let's have a go. Look, those crosses that were coming in, and you see Humphries, since he's come back, he's shown glimpses of, you know what, he can play. Edwards has shown glimpses. Why the hell he didn't play for 15 games is beyond me. And I know he can be lightweight, right? Who disagrees with that? But yeah, get him moving forward, and let's not ask him to defend. Let's just get him going forward, because going forward, teams shit themselves when he's running at them. We've got players in that team that can do stuff. We've just not put it together. And ultimately, that comes down to the coaching staff, right?
I don't think the quality's there. I think there's.
Fair enough.
If you look at that team, I'd say there's 2 Premier League footballers in that team, Dubravka and Kyle Walker. Regardless of Kyle Walker's recent performances, he's a Premier League footballer. And then you can maybe say Jadon Anthony is a player who, if he was at another club, might get 8 to 10 games in a season somewhere. Maybe Ugo Chukwu, if you improve certain aspects of his game, could play for a Brentford or someone like that. But that's it. I don't see most of those players getting into sides in the Premier League, and they won't, as we'll see this summer. They won't be moving to Premier League clubs, those players.
We're talking about saleable assets. There's, not a great deal of saleable assets, is there?
No.
What a positive way to end. Thank you very much. You're all now going to bed without any supper.
FA Cup run. That's what we've got to look forward to. FA Cup run. There you go. Positive.
Mansfield next week. Plenty of tickets.
Looking forward to that, aren't we?
Got Palace on Wednesday, aren't we?
Oh, Palace on Wednesday. Of course, yeah.
We're all looking forward to that one.
Good time.
I'm looking forward to Mansfield next Saturday. I'm in the Bob Lord again next Saturday, which I absolutely love going in the Bob Lord for a little bit of a change. But plenty of tickets still available, I'm sure, for Burnley versus Mansfield next week. We'll be back, no doubt, after the Palace game with a rapid reaction or a debrief or a therapy session, whatever we're going to call them, because we probably need to change the name of them a little bit. And then we'll be back later in the week. So we'll leave you with a best wishes for the week. And don't forget, make sure you tidy your room, make sure you do the washing up, and make sure you do your homework, or else Daddy's not going to give you his pocket money. Until we see you again, up the Clarets.